If you've been following the whole Fallout 4 situation on PlayStation, especially since Bethesda's Anniversary Edition update cycle kicked off, you know exactly how frustrating this has been. Paid Fallout 4 DLC was not appearing, expansions were not registering, saves were breaking because Fallout 4 suddenly decided content you purchased didn't exist. And when something like that happens, it feels personal. Like, bugs are annoying, performance problems are annoying, but losing access to something you paid for feels just not okay. It feels unfair. And that's why the reaction across the community was so strong, and why I've covered this topic multiple times. Now, Bethesda has finally pushed an update that's meant to fix the missing DLC issue on PlayStation 4. So let's talk about what we actually know and what we don't. On February 10th, Bethesda confirmed that an update has rolled out for Fallout 4 Anniversary Edition addressing the DLC disappearance problem. This is the exact issue that's been affecting players since late 2025, where expansions like Far Harbor, Automatron, Nuka World, or Workshop packs simply didn't show up in-game. Sometimes they were installed according to PlayStation, sometimes the store showed them as owned, but Fallout 4 itself acted like they were gone. And that created a chain reaction of problems. Saves tied to DLC regions wouldn't load, quests wouldn't trigger, map locations vanished, workshop items disappeared, entire playthroughs became inaccessible, depending on where the character last saved. That's hours or hundreds of hours of player investment, suddenly locked behind validation errors they couldn't control. The psychological impact of that kind of failure is so much more than just frustrating. When you're hundreds of hours into a character build, when you've meticulously constructed settlements across the Commonwealth, when you've completed faction questlines and invested emotional energy into narrative choices, and then the game just locks you out because it can't verify you own Far Harbor, that's devastating. It's not like a crash where you lose 15 minutes. It's your entire investment suddenly held hostage by back-end systems you can't see or control. And the randomness made it even worse. Two players with identical setups would get completely different outcomes. There was no pattern you could identify, no workaround you could rely on. The unpredictability destroyed any sense of agency. You couldn't troubleshoot it, you couldn't prevent it, you could only hope you weren't next. Bethesda says this update specifically targets that issue. At the same time, they also fixed the PC problem involving the Creations bundle not appearing correctly. They've implemented interface tweaks, improved menu transparency, and addressed crashes tied to downloading Creation Club content. So it's not a single-line patch, it's a broader maintenance update touching multiple areas. The scope of these fixes actually tells us something important. By addressing multiple entitlement-related issues simultaneously across different platforms, Bethesda is clearly working on the underlying validation architecture instead of just applying band-aid solutions to surface symptoms. The PC Creations bundle issue, the PlayStation DLC recognition problem, and the Creation Club download crashes all point to the same root cause. The entitlement verification system that checks what content you own and whether you can access it. And here's the initial reaction from the community. We're already seeing early player responses confirming improvements, comments from people saying they updated and their DLC returned, saves loading again, content accessible again. Some players are clearly experiencing restored functionality almost immediately. And of course, that's absolutely amazing to see, because this issue had been dragging on long enough that frustration was starting to evolve into resignation. People uninstalling, people giving up on saves, people saying they'd never touch Fallout 4 again. When players reach that point, you're dealing with destroyed trust. It's not just a technical glitch anymore. Trust is harder to rebuild than software. A patch can fix code overnight, but convincing someone who lost 200 hours of progress that it's safe to invest time again, that takes sustained reliability. That takes proof that the problem won't just resurface in a month. So any step toward reversing that trajectory matters. But I think we still need to stay grounded for now. It's still early. We're inside the initial rollout window. We don't have large-scale data yet. Fallout 4 historically hasn't behaved uniformly across platforms, regions, editions, or account configurations. Some issues affect physical copies differently than digital ones. Some show up only under certain entitlement states. Some interact strangely with Creation Club content or prior update sequences. So early success reports are encouraging for sure, but they aren't a universal verdict. I'm not trying to be negative, I'm being realistic based on pattern history. Older games, layered with years of updates, accumulate technical complexity. Fallout 4 today is not the same structural product that launched in 2015. It has gone through multiple lifecycle evolutions. Engine behavior changes, next-gen patching, monetization layering, content entitlement restructuring, Anniversary Edition integration. Every layer increases the number of possible interaction states. That complexity is exactly why entitlement failures happened in the first place, and it's why fixes sometimes require real-world testing time before full confidence can exist. One thing worth acknowledging though, and I think this matters, is that Bethesda finally acted. Because for a while, communication around this issue was sparse. Players were stuck between platform support and publisher support. Workarounds circulated that didn't help. License restoration steps that only worked in limited cases. Endless reinstall attempts. And people understandably felt like they were shouting into the void. The silence was probably the most damaging part. Not knowing whether Bethesda even recognized the problem, whether they were working on it, whether a fix was even possible. That uncertainty amplified every other frustration. When you're experiencing a bug and the developer acknowledges it and says they're working on it, you can at least be patient. But when there's just silence, you start assuming the worst. This update breaks that stagnation. It came way too late, so much later than it should have. But at least it's here now. It shows recognition, it shows intervention, and that's important for rebuilding confidence, even if stability confirmation takes time. There's also another piece of information Bethesda included that shouldn't get overlooked. They mentioned that expanded creation storage capacity for consoles is still coming later, with more details in the future. That tells us Fallout 4 infrastructure work hasn't stopped. Systems tied to content handling and entitlement layers are still being developed or refined. And whether you love or hate Creation Club, that ongoing work signals continued lifecycle attention rather than abandonment. Now, let's talk practical steps. If you're on PlayStation 4 and you've experienced DLC recognition issues, update the game immediately. And then, don't just launch casually. Try to actually test functionality. Load affected saves, travel to expansion zones, trigger DLC quests, access workshop content, verify recognition consistency. That kind of verification gives real clarity. If everything works, that's a legitimate win. If something doesn't, try to document specifics and leave a comment on the video. Stuff like addition type, install method, platform version, symptoms. That data helps identify whether residual edge cases exist. Community data is genuinely valuable here. Bethesda's internal testing can only cover so many configurations, but when thousands of players with different setups all test simultaneously, edge cases surface quickly. If 95% of players report success, but 5% still have problems, identifying what makes that 5% different helps isolate remaining issues. And I want to step back for a second here because this entire situation has highlighted something bigger than just Fallout 4. It's highlighted how fragile digital ownership perception can feel when validation chains fail. Technically, nothing was removed. Purchases remained attached to accounts, but functional access disappeared under certain conditions. That gap between ownership record and usability reality shakes player confidence in ecosystem reliability. Fixing the bug repairs access. Rebuilding psychological confidence takes much longer, if it's possible at all. That happens through sustained stability, and not just one patch. Although this patch is a step in the right direction. So where are we right now? Bethesda deployed an update targeting missing DLC recognition on PlayStation 4. Early feedback suggests improvement. It sounds promising as of this moment. Additional stability and UI fixes were included. Creation infrastructure updates remain in progress. Full ecosystem confirmation is still unfolding. That's significantly better than where we were weeks ago. I'll keep tracking reports as more player data surfaces and update again if trends change or if further patches appear. If you install the update, Share your results in the comments. Platform details, edition type, success or failure, that helps paint the clearest possible picture of Fallout 4's current state. Thanks for watching.